After 3 solid weeks of My Adventures with Superman, does it continue to soar or does it take its first stumble? What's up, Nerdgenic Nation? Superhero nerd Aaron Waller here, and today I want to talk about what may be my favorite animated show right now, My Adventures with Superman, and its 4th episode titled Let's Go to Ivo Tower, you say. This episode sees Clark, Lois, and Jimmy being tasked to cover an event hosted by the problematic CEO of Amazotech, Anthony Ivo, also while Clark continues to try and hide his secret identity from the group. And while Lois sniffs around all the corrupt attendees at the party, Clark stumbles upon Ivo's secret of building a suit called the Parasite 1.0 that can rival Superman's powers. And of course, after causing some havoc and goading Superman to come, the two end up battling in what may be a serious test for the Man of Steel. And after what I would say was 3 pretty strong episodes, this 4th installment definitely felt like it wasn't quite as good. And not that it was bad, I just think that it took its time building up the villain of the week while mingling Clark's story that took a little bit longer than it should have, but at the same time, I think a little story building was kind of necessary here. One thing that I did find interesting, however, was the concept of the Parasite suit and how it was integrated into the story, as Parasite is typically an alien that Superman ends up fighting rather than a suit of armor from a tech genius, which I also thought was kind of funny and a slight jab from DC at Marvel with the character's name, building an armored suit, and being a tech genius / billionaire. But I think that this was probably one of my more favorite iterations of the Parasite character because it's so typically bland and just being an alien that arrives and doesn't really have any motivation other than just being a typical alien takeover. That being said, however, the abilities of the suit and the Anthony Ivo character, along with being a Tony Stark parallel, implied a bit of a Lex Luthor story to me. So whether Luthor does appear and uses this as inspiration later for his own suit could be kinda cool, but it also feels like it's not his own idea. So I'm not quite sure how to feel about that yet if they do end up calling back to this at a later point. And despite Clark doing his absolute best to cover up stories that could lead to someone uncovering his secret, Lois just being Lois is able to start putting pieces together, which sets up next week or the weeks to come of her testing him to see if he really is Superman or just straight out confronting Clark. And I know that Lois is a smart woman and it's just the nature of her character, but this is probably one of my least favorite things about her is that she's constantly sticking her nose in things that typically end up with her in trouble. So whether she ends up confronting Clark or being in the damsel in distress to see if he'll actually show up as Superman, she'll obviously be doing her absolute most to get the truth, but it'll really depend on how Clark reacts to it that will really affect the direction of the show in my opinion. I just really wish there was something that Clark decided to tell her. Even if she does end up being mad, especially as they continue to grow closer, I think that having her discover the secret on her own only implies that other people can make the same connection, which there should be a few characters that can do that, but I just hope it doesn't snowball. Overall, I thought this episode was good, just not great. I felt like it left me wanting something more, though I'm not quite sure what that more is. Maybe I just can't really get over the Tony Stark ripoff. I don't really know. But I like the changes to Parasite, and the fight between him and Superman was actually pretty good. But what happens to Ivo was somewhat tragic, but also I felt like it was going to be motivation for a later episode in which he will definitely return. And as for Lois and Clark, I think that confrontation of his true identity is only becoming more inevitable as we would expect. But the series is still going in the right direction. It has everything it needs to continue to be great. I just think that this week was a slight falter in the greatness that we've seen so far. And I can really only hope that next week continues to be good and that the story progression and the villain of the week make for a fun and entertaining 20 or so minutes. But those are my thoughts on episode 4 of My Adventures with Superman, and now I want to hear from you in the Nerdgenic community. Do you think that this episode kept the form of the show, or do you think that it might have been the weakest one so far? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and while you're down there, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos, as well as my thoughts on the next episode of My Adventures with Superman. But also be sure to give us a follow across all social media platforms at Nerdgenic. That way you don't miss out on any special news, announcements, or articles at nerdgenic.com. And in the meantime, if you want even more video content from us, check out my thoughts on the previous episode of My Adventures with Superman right over here, or for more awesome DC content, check out this playlist right over here. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, we really do appreciate it, and we hope to see you in the next video.